Step away from the patient, Nurse Rosales, or I will have security throw you out into the street myself. The voice was shrill, cutting through the rhythmic beeping of the cardiac monitors in Trauma Bay 4. It belonged to Victoria Price, the chief administrator of Mercy General Hospital in Chicago. She stood in the doorway, her tailored gray suit bone-dry, a stark contrast to the chaos of the emergency room on a stormy Tuesday night. Elena Rosales, 46 years old and wearing scrubs that had seen better days, didn't flinch. She had been an ER nurse for 22 years. She had treated gangbangers, politicians, overdosing teenagers, and dying grandmothers. She knew the look of death, and she knew the look of a bureaucracy trying to kill someone to save a buck. He's unstable, Victoria, Elena said, her voice low and dangerous. She stood between the hospital bed and the two burly security guards flanking the administrator. In her hand, she held a syringe of atropine like a dagger. You move him, his heart stops. He dies. It's that simple. He is a vagrant, Elena, Dr. Julian Sterling interjected, stepping out from behind the administrator. Sterling was 35, handsome in a plastic sort of way, and possessed an ego that barely fit through the automatic doors. He checked his Rolex. We have a multi-vehicle collision coming in from I-90, paying patients with insurance. This man is consuming resources we don't have. He's a John Doe with alcohol poisoning. Move him to the waiting room. Elena looked back at the patient. To the untrained eye, the man in the bed was invisible, just another piece of urban debris. He looked about 62. His beard was a matted gray mess. His clothes were soaked in mud and smelling of diesel and cheap whiskey. He was emaciated, his skin pale and clammy. But Elena had seen what Sterling hadn't. When she cut off his soaking wet flannel shirt 20 minutes ago, she hadn't found the needle tracks of an addict or the sores of a long-term homeless man. She found scars. Not random street fight scars. Surgical precision. A faint white line running down his sternum, a bypass or a repair from massive trauma. And on his left shoulder, a burn scar that looked suspiciously like shrapnel removal. But it was his hands that told the story. His calluses weren't on the fingertips like a guitarist or all over the palm like a bricklayer. They were on the ridge of the trigger finger and the web of the thumb. Look at the monitor, Julian, Elena snapped. Heart rate 34. Third-degree AV block. That's not booze. That's a failing conduction system. He needs a pacemaker, not a chair in the lobby. It's hypothermia-induced bradycardia, Sterling dismissed, rolling his eyes. Warm him up and he'll be fine. Now move him. One of the security guards, a man named Miller who usually shared donuts with Elena, looked apologetic. Elena, come on. Don't make us do this. Boss's orders. The man in the bed suddenly gasped. It was a wet, rattling sound. His eyes flew open. They weren't the yellow, jaundiced eyes of a drunk. They were gray, steely, sharp, and terrified. He locked eyes with Elena. For a split second, the fog of unconsciousness lifted. He reached out, grabbing Elena's wrist. His grip was iron. The silencer, he rasped. The voice was like grinding stones. Don't let them broadcast. You're safe, Elena soothed, trying to check his pulse. You're at Mercy, General. No, the man wheezed, trying to sit up. Code, Valkyrie, Black, 7. Sterling laughed. Cruel, sharp sound. Valkyrie Black? What is that, a new brand of malt liquor? He's delirious. Miller, grab the gurney. He's giving a call sign, Elena shouted, pushing Miller's hand away. Look at him. He's not a bum. He's a soldier. He's a hallucinogenic drain on my budget, Victoria Price hissed. Elena, you are relieved of duty. Effective immediately. Get your things and get out. No. The room went silent. Excuse me? Price's face turned a blotchy red. I said no, Elena said, planting her feet. I am the charge nurse. Under Article 4 of the Patient Safety Act, I am invoking my right to refuse an unsafe transfer. If you want him moved, you do it. But when he dies in that hallway, I will testify at the inquest that you ordered it. I will sue you, the hospital, and Dr. Sterling for negligent homicide. Sterling's face paled. He looked at Price. Get her out, Price shrieked, pointing a manicured finger. Now! Miller sighed and stepped forward. Sorry, Elena. He grabbed her arm. Elena struggled, the syringe clattering to the floor. You're killing him. Check his boot. The left boot heel. I felt something there. Drag her out. Price screamed. Miller and the second guard wrestled Elena toward the door. She kicked and screamed, watching helplessly as Sterling reached for the leads of the external pacer she had just hooked up. Time of transfer, 23:45. Sterling muttered, reaching for the off switch. Ringing. It wasn't the chirping phone at the nurse's station. It wasn't a cell phone. It was the harsh, mechanical trill of the red rotary phone mounted on the wall behind the crash cart. Everyone froze. That phone had been installed in 1985. It was a direct civil defense line, a relic of the Cold War intended for nuclear attack warnings. In 22 years, Elena had never heard it ring. Not once. It sat there, covered in dust, a joke among the staff. Ringing. The sound was deafening in the silence. The unit clerk, a young girl named Sarah, stared at it in horror. She looked at Price. Price looked at the phone, then at Sterling. Answer it, Price whispered, her voice trembling. Sarah picked up the heavy red handset. Mercy, General. Emergency. She listened for 2 seconds. All the blood drained from her face. She held the phone out, her hand shaking violently. Who is it? Sterling asked, annoyed. Is it a prank? It's the White House Situation Room, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. They have a patch through from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Price scoffed. Give me that. She snatched the phone. This is Administrator Price. If this is some kind of radio show prank, I will have the FCC. She stopped. Elena, still held by the guards, watched as Victoria Price's arrogance evaporated. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes went wide, fixing on the homeless man in the bed. Yes, General, Price squeaked. We have a John Doe matching that description. Yes, trauma for... No, sir, he is being treated with the utmost... She pulled the phone away from her ear as a voice on the other end roared loud enough for the room to hear. If that man's heart stops beating for a microsecond, madam, I will not send the police. I will send a drone strike to your parking lot. Do you understand me? Price swallowed hard. Understood. Put the nurse on. The one who refused to move him. Price turned slowly to Elena. The look of disdain was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. She held the phone out. It's for you. Miller released Elena immediately, stepping back as if she were radioactive. Elena straightened her scrubs, walked past a stunned Dr. Sterling, and took the receiver. This is Rosales. The voice on the other end softened instantly, though it remained commanding. Nurse Rosales, this is General Marcus Vance. The man in front of you is General Elias Thorne. He has been missing for 4 months. Is he alive? Barely, sir, Elena said, her voice steady. 3rd-degree block. I'm pacing him externally, but he needs a transvenous wire and an ICU bed immediately. The administration was trying to discharge him. Discharge him? Vance let out a dark chuckle that made the hair on Elena's arms stand up. They just tried to throw the former head of JSOC into the rain. Listen to me carefully, Elena. You are now the ranking officer in that room. I am federalizing your trauma bay. No one touches him but you. Understood, sir. We have a Tier 1 extraction team 5 minutes out. Call sign Grave Digger. But, Elena, if Thorne activated his biosignal, it means he's compromised. You are not just a hospital anymore. You are a fortress. Lock the doors. Elena hung up the phone. The click echoed in the room. She turned to Price and Sterling. The power dynamic had shifted so violently the air felt heavy. Miller, Elena said calmly. The security guard snapped to attention. Yes, Elena? Lock the double doors. Put a chair under the handles. No one comes in unless they're wearing a flag patch. On it. Miller ran to the doors. You can't do this. Sterling sputtered, trying to regain some dignity. This is my patient. I am the attending physician. Elena walked up to Sterling. She was 5'4" and he was 6'1", but in that moment, she towered over him. Dr. Sterling, you just diagnosed a national hero with being a bum. Step away from my patient, or I will let Miller finish dragging someone out of this room. And this time, it'll be you. The lights went out 3 minutes later. It wasn't a standard power failure. There was no flicker. 1 second, the fluorescent glare of the ER was buzzing. The next, pitch blackness. A second later, the red emergency floodlights kicked in, bathing Trauma 4 in a blood-colored glow. The hum of the backup generator vibrated through the floor, but the computer screens remained dark. They cut the hard lines, Elena whispered, checking General Thorne's portable monitor. It was battery-operated. Thump, 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 still pacing. Who cut the lines? Price asked from the corner, clutching her pearls. Is this a storm outage? No, Elena said, moving to the window. Rain lashed against the glass, blurring the city lights. But down in the ambulance bay, she saw shadows. Not paramedics. Men. 6 of them. They wore black rain slickers, but the way they moved, fluid synchronized weapons held low, was unmistakable. We have company, Elena said. Miller. Get away from the glass. Crack. A suppressed round shattered the glass of the sliding doors. Miller dove behind the triage desk just as the lobby exploded in a hail of gunfire. Oh my God! Oh my God! Price was on the floor, crawling under a sink. Sterling, help me move the bed, Elena shouted. Where? Sterling was hyperventilating. There's nowhere to go. The old quarantine wing, Elena said. It's in the basement. Thick walls, one entrance. Move. Elena unlocked the wheels. Sterling, driven by pure terror, grabbed the foot of the bed. They pushed General Thorne out of the trauma bay and into the main corridor. The ER was pandemonium. Nurses were screaming, patients were scrambling. The attackers in the lobby were moving methodically, shooting out cameras and checking faces. They weren't spraying bullets randomly. They were hunting. The elevators are dead, Sterling cried as they reached the bank. Service ramp, Elena directed. She steered the heavy gurney toward the linen transport ramp. It was steep, dark, and narrow. As they descended into the bowels of the hospital, the sounds of gunfire grew distant, replaced by the dripping of pipes and their own ragged breathing. The old quarantine wing had been closed since the 90s. It smelled of mildew and rust. Elena guided the gurney into an old isolation room and kicked the heavy iron door shut. She engaged the manual deadbolt. Check him, Elena ordered, grabbing a flashlight. Sterling shone the light on Thorne. The general was groaning, his face contorted in pain. The pacing pads are slipping, Elena noted. He's sweating too much. We need to secure them. We're going to die here, Price whimpered. She had followed them down, losing a shoe in the process. Who are these people? Mercenaries, a gravelly voice answered. General Thorne was awake. His eyes were open, focused on the ceiling. General, Elena leaned over him. I'm Elena. We're hiding in the basement. Black Ledger, Thorne wheezed. Private military contractors. Rogue. They want the chip. The chip? Elena asked. In my boot, Thorne gasped. Evidence. Senate, Pentagon, billions in bribes. They can't let me talk. Elena reached down to his muddy combat boot. She pried off the rubber heel. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a tiny microSD card. That's it, Sterling asked, staring at the tiny object. People are shooting at us for a memory card? That card brings down the government, Thorne said, clutching his chest. Arg! The monitor began to shriek. V-fib, Elena yelled. He's lost capture. Sterling, charge the paddles. I don't have the crash cart, Sterling yelled back. We left it upstairs. Use the manual defibrillator on the wall. Elena pointed to a dusty glass case containing an ancient defib unit. Sterling smashed the glass with his elbow. He pulled out the paddles. It's got no charge. The battery is dead. Plug it in, Elena screamed. The red outlets are generator-powered. Sterling fumbled with the cord. Boom! The door to the quarantine wing shook. Someone was using a battering ram. They found us, Price sobbed. Sterling, shock him. Elena ordered, doing chest compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Charging, Sterling yelled. The whine of the capacitor filled the small room. Clear. Thump. Thorne's body arched. Still V-fib, Elena said, checking the pulse. Again. 300 joules. Boom. The door hinges groaned. Sparks flew. They're cutting through, Miller shouted. He had found a fire axe and was standing by the door, shaking. Clear, Sterling yelled. Thump. Silence. Then, beep, beep, beep. Sinus rhythm, Elena breathed. He's back. The door exploded inward. Miller swung the axe, but a dark figure stepped through the smoke, caught the axe handle mid-swing, and kicked Miller in the chest. Miller flew backward, hitting the wall and sliding down, unconscious. 2 men stepped into the room. They wore tactical armor, night vision goggles, and held suppressed carbines. No insignia. The leader, a massive man with a scar running through his eyebrow, leveled his weapon at Elena. Step away from the asset, he said, his voice mechanically distorted. Elena stood in front of the general. She didn't have a weapon. She had a stethoscope and a pair of trauma shears. He is a patient, Elena said, her voice shaking but defiant. You want him? You go through me. The leader tilted his head. Admirable. Stupid but admirable. He raised the rifle. Price screamed. Sterling put his hands up. Don't shoot. I'm a doctor. I can help you. Shut up, Julian, Elena spat. The mercenary's finger tightened on the trigger. Suddenly, the ceiling vent above the mercenary's head exploded. It wasn't a bomb. It was a person. A black blur dropped from the ventilation shaft, landing directly on the leader's shoulders. There was a sickening snap, and the leader crumpled to the ground. The second mercenary spun around, but the new figure was faster. A knife flashed once, twice, into the gap of the mercenary's armor. He dropped silently. The newcomer stood up. He was covered in dust, wearing wet tactical gear with a ghost recon patch, a skull with crossed lightning bolts. He carried a customized rifle and moved like a coiled spring. He flipped up his night vision goggles, revealing intense blue eyes and a face smeared with camo paint. He looked at Elena, then at the general. Room clear, he said into a headset. Package secured. Good evening, folks. I'm Major Jackson Graves. You can call me Jax. Who's in charge here? Elena stepped forward, her hands still bloody from the 4-line. I am. Jax grinned. A wild, dangerous grin. Well then, ma'am. General Vance sends his regards. Now, let's get the hell out of here before the rest of the party shows up. We can't go up, Sterling stammered, looking at the dead mercenaries on the floor. There are more of them upstairs. That's why we're going to the roof, Jack said, reloading his magazine. Extraction chopper is inbound. ETA 4 minutes. The elevators are down, Elena reminded him. We take the freight lift, Jack said. My team just hot-wired the override, but we have to move fast. Black Ledger has a kill squad sweeping the 2nd floor. Jax tapped his earpiece. Echo 2, this is lead. We are moving to the freight shaft. Cover R6. Copy that, lead. We're engaging hostiles in the cafeteria. Make it quick. Jax looked at the gurney. Can he move? No, Elena said. If we disconnect the monitor, we lose him. We have to take the whole bed. Right? Doc, you grab the front. Nurse, you're on the back with me. Lady in the suit. Try not to get shot. They pushed the gurney out of the room, leaving the unconscious Miller safe behind a locked door. They reached the freight elevator. Jax hit the button. The gears groaned, and the heavy cage began to ascend. So, Jax said to Elena as they rose past the basement level. Vance said a nurse held off a hospital admin with a syringe. That you? It was atropine, Elena said, adjusting the drip on Thorn's 4. Nice. Jax nodded appreciatively. Chemical warfare. I like it. Suddenly, Dr. Sterling's phone buzzed. Elena frowned. There's no signal. The jammers are on. Sterling looked panic-stricken. He tried to hide the phone in his pocket. Jax moved faster than a striking cobra. He grabbed Sterling's wrist and twisted. Sterling yelped, dropping the phone. It was an encrypted satellite phone, not a standard smartphone. Jax picked it up. He read the text on the screen. Target moving to freight elevator. Cut the cable. Jax looked at Sterling. The look was one of pure disgust. You signaled them, Elena whispered, staring at the doctor. You traitor. They offered me $2 million. Sterling cried, tears streaming down his face. I have gambling debts. They said no one would get hurt. They just wanted the old man. You sold a patient, Elena said, her voice dripping with venom. You sold us. Clang. The elevator shook violently. It stopped between the 4th and 5th floors. They cut the power to the lift, Jack said, looking up at the hatch. We're sitting ducks. He looked at Sterling. You know, in the field, we handle traitors quickly. Please, Sterling begged. Save it, Jax growled. He boosted himself up to the emergency hatch in the ceiling of the elevator car. Nurse, I need your help. We have to lift the general through the hatch. He's 180 pounds of dead weight, Elena argued. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug, Jack said. He pulled himself onto the roof of the elevator car. Pass him up. Elena and Sterling, at gunpoint, lifted the general's upper body while Jax pulled from above. It was grueling, messy work. The general groaned but stayed conscious. Once they were all on top of the elevator car, looking up the dark shaft, Jax pointed to the service ladder on the wall. We climb, Jax said. It's 2 floors to the roof access. I can't climb that with a patient, Elena said. Jax unclipped a heavy nylon strap from his vest. I'll strap him to my back. Fireman's carry. Doc, you go first. If you slow down, I shoot you in the ass. Move. Sterling scrambled up the ladder. Jax hoisted the semi-conscious General Thorne onto his back, securing him with the strap. The general was groaning in pain. Hang in there, ironclad, Jax whispered to the old man. Almost home. They began to climb. Elena followed last, her legs burning. Above them, the door to the roof access burst open. Rain poured into the shaft. A mercenary leaned over, aiming a pistol down at them. Contact high, Jax yelled. He couldn't shoot. His hands were holding the ladder and the general. Elena didn't think. She grabbed the only thing she had left, a heavy, metal oxygen tank she had dragged from the gurney. She swung it against the metal ladder rung. Clang. The sound startled the mercenary. He hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was enough. Thwip. A single shot rang out from above the roof. The mercenary's head snapped back, and he fell past them, down the shaft. A face appeared in the opening. A woman in tactical gear. Clear. Come on up, Jax. That's Echo 2, Jax grunted. Best sniper in the hemisphere. They scrambled onto the roof. The storm was raging. Rain lashed sideways. The wind howled, but the most beautiful sound in the world cut through the storm. The whop-whop-whop of heavy rotors. A massive Sikorsky MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, painted matte black with no markings, was hovering over the helipad. The side doors were open, and a minigunner was scanning the perimeter. Go! 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 Jax shouted, half carrying, half dragging General Thorne toward the bird. Suddenly, the roof access door behind them exploded. 3 more mercenaries burst out, opening fire. Bullets sparked off the concrete around Elena's feet. Get to the chopper, Jax roared. He dropped the general near the door gunner and turned around, raising his rifle. He and the sniper, Echo 2, began laying down suppressing fire. Elena scrambled into the helicopter cabin. The crew chief, A woman with a flight helmet grabbed the general and pulled him in. Price and Sterling scrambled in behind them, shivering and terrified. "Jax!" Elena screamed. The major was still on the roof, trading fire with the mercenaries. "I'm coming!" Jax fired a grenade from his underslung launcher. Thump! Boom! The doorway where the mercenaries were hiding vanished in a cloud of smoke and debris. Jax sprinted for the helicopter and dove in just as the pilot pulled pitch. The Black Hawk lurched into the sky, banking hard to the left. "We're clear!" the pilot shouted over the intercom. "Not yet," Jax said, breathless. He looked out the window. On the hospital roof, a mercenary was shouldering a tube. A man-portable air defense system. "Missile lock!" the pilot screamed. "Brace!" Elena watched in horror as a trail of fire leaped from the hospital roof, racing toward them. Flares! The helicopter erupted in a shower of magnesium stars. Bright, blinding white heat. The missile, confused by the heat signature, veered sharply into the flares. Kaboom! The shockwave rattled the helicopter, but the missile detonated safely behind them. "Target identified," the pilot said, his voice cold. "Permission to engage?" Jax looked at General Thorne. The old man nodded weakly. "Light 'em up," Jax said. High above the clouds, a circling AC-130 gunship, which had been loitering silently, opened fire. From the helicopter window, Elena saw a beam of red light, tracers from the hand of God, slam into the roof of the hospital. It wasn't a building-destroying bomb. It was precision fire. It obliterated the mercenary team and the communications array they had set up. "Splash!" the pilot confirmed. "Threat neutralized. We are RTB to Walter Reed." Elena slumped back against the vibrating metal wall of the cabin. She was soaked, covered in grease and blood, and shaking from adrenaline. Jax unclipped his helmet and looked at her. He smiled, offering her a bottle of water. "You okay, Rosales?" Elena took the water, her hands trembling. She looked at General Thorne, who was finally stable, hook up to the helicopter's advanced medical suite. "I'm alive," she said. "You did good," Jax said. He pointed to the trembling Dr. Sterling in the corner. "What do we do with him?" Elena looked at Sterling. The arrogance was gone. He looked small, pathetic. "He tampered with a patient," Elena said. "He colluded with terrorists. And he tried to kill a general." General Thorne opened his eyes. He pulled the oxygen mask aside. "MP," he whispered. "Sir." Jax leaned in. "Hand him over to the military police," Thorne rasped. "Gitmo. Sounds nice this time of year." Sterling began to sob. 3 days later, the sun was shining in Washington, D.C. The storm had passed. Elena sat in a waiting room at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. She wasn't wearing scrubs. She was wearing her best dress. The door opened, and a young Marine captain stepped out. "Ma'am, the general will see you now." Elena walked into the private suite. General Elias Thorne was sitting up in bed. He looked different. Shaved, clean, wearing a crisp hospital gown. The color had returned to his face. Standing by the window was General Marcus Vance, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And leaning against the wall in dress blues was Major Jax Graves. "Nurse Rosales," General Vance said, stepping forward and extending his hand. "It is an honor." "The honor is mine, sir," Elena said, shaking his hand. "You saved my life, Elena," General Thorne said. His voice was stronger now. "The doctors here said if you hadn't paced me and kept me warm, I would have been dead an hour before Jax got there." "I was just doing my job," Elena said. "No," Vance interrupted. "Your job was to follow orders. You disobeyed orders to do what was right. That's not a job. That's character." Vance picked up a remote and turned on the TV on the wall. It was a news report. The headline read, "Hospital Scandal. Administrator fired. Doctor arrested in trafficking ring." On the screen, footage showed Victoria Price being escorted out of Mercy General by FBI agents. She was handcuffed, trying to cover her face with her blazer. Then, a mugshot of Julian Sterling appeared. The anchor spoke. Dr. Julian Sterling has been charged with treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and wire fraud. He is being held without bail. The memory card in my boot, Thorne explained. It contained the names of every politician and CEO who was funding Black Ledger. Because of you, we cleaned house this morning. 12 senators are resigning. The syndicate is broken. Elena felt a weight lift off her chest she didn't know she was carrying. What happens to me now? Elena asked. I'm pretty sure I was fired. Technically, Vance smiled. But Mercy General is under new management. The board of directors has been strongly advised to restructure. He handed Elena a folder. However, Vance continued, we have a better offer. Walter Reed is opening a new trauma training center for combat medics. We need a director, someone who knows how to handle chaos, someone who doesn't back down from brass. Elena opened the folder. The salary was triple what she made in Chicago. But more importantly, the title read, Director of Critical Care Education. You don't have to answer now, Jack said, smiling. But the coffee here is better than that swill at Mercy. Elena looked at the contract. She looked at Thorne, who gave her a nod of respect. She thought about the years of being undervalued, of fighting for patients against a system that only cared about profit. She thought about the adrenaline of the helicopter ride. She closed the folder and smiled. When do I start? 6 months later. Elena walked through the corridors of the training center. She wore a white lab coat with her name embroidered on it. Elena Rosales, RN, Director. She entered a lecture hall packed with young combat medics and nurses. They snapped to attention as she walked in. At ease, Elena said, standing at the podium. She looked out at the sea of eager faces. You are going to learn how to suture wounds, she began. You are going to learn how to intubate in a sandstorm. You are going to learn pharmacology. She paused, looking at a framed photo on her desk, a picture of her, Jax, and General Thorne on the helipad. But the most important thing I will teach you is this. Rank does not matter. Money does not matter. When you are standing between a patient and death, you are the highest authority in the room. She picked up a stethoscope. You don't need a gun to be a soldier. Sometimes, you just need the guts to say no. She smiled. Now let's get to work.